Hello and welcome to the first of 4 videos that I'm going to be making on the unique and legendary Bruce Lee. A little bit of background about myself. My name is Simon Boyd. I have been studying Bruce since a very young age, probably about 12-13 years of age. In that time I actually worked with a couple of his first generation students, Jim DeMille and Jerry Petit, both of whom actually worked with Bruce in the early years of his martial arts. Beyond that, I am very skilled and developed in something called neuro-linguistic programming, which I studied back in the 1980s, which is a methodology for capturing excellence. NLP helps us to codify what a person is doing internally that allows them to perform in the way that they do. It's a bit like, you could say, copying somebody, which is what we do, of course, as children. To learn, we copy those around us, we take on the language patterns of those around us, we often take on the mannerisms of those around us. And NLP does the same, but also helps to capture some of the inner magic that's going on in the person. So, why Bruce Lee? Well, let's just have a little resume of what Bruce Lee's life was like. Died at only 32 years of age, and in that time was able to create a martial art. Now I want you to think about that for a minute, what that is as an achievement. The martial arts have been part and parcel of our world for many, many years. Some of them date back to, say, 500 AD. Kung Fu originated in the Shaolin temples, karate in Japan. These traditions had been around for many, many years and hadn't changed at all. If you did karate 100 years ago, it was the same as 200 years ago. Well, along came Bruce Lee. And what he did was to examine these arts with one key question in mind. Do they work? Are they practical? Are they functional? And he began to realise that a lot of them weren't. That some of the techniques that were used, the kicks that were used, the forms that people had to practice day in, day out, simply didn't have a use in terms of modern street self-defense, which is what the martial arts really are about. They're about self-defense. They can be sports, but the real core of the martial arts is nothing to do with sport. It's about self-defense. It's about being able to take care of yourself, being able to defend yourself if needed. So he invented a martial art, which I say is an amazing achievement. Beyond that, he created a whole new genre of films. Up until the point when Bruce came onto the market in the film world, Kung Fu films were very poor quality. They were usually swords, they were samurai type films. There was very little realistic martial arts action in them. And Bruce was, in a short space of time, able to generate a whole new film genre of martial arts magic. I'm sure some of you have seen the films, but they're certainly worth looking at them in terms of the qualities of his abilities. I think probably the best being the fight with Chuck Norris in The Way of the Dragon will be the one I would say to really look at in terms of Bruce's skills. And so in a very short life, he achieved an incredible amount, and this is what this series of videos is going to be about. It's going to be about how did he do that. So I call it the Iced Dragon, which is breaking down Bruce into 4 key areas: intelligence, confidence, excellence, and discipline. And in my experience of looking at Bruce, studying him, reading as much as I can about him, watching him being interviewed, these I think are the 4 key traits that if you master, take on board, master them, can give you amazing results in your life. Okay, so these are the key 4. So we're starting today in this first talk with intelligence. Now intelligence is an interesting thing because I would say it's the one thing that very few people think about increasing. They go down the gym and they work out to get fit and they want to have a toned body and look good physically, But not many people think about intelligence. How intelligent am I? Can I become more intelligent? So this is our first area of focus, is going to be intelligence. So the first question we ask is, well, what is it? What's intelligence? I mean, it's a word. And of course, any word can have multiple meanings, and intelligence is a great example of this. Intelligence is a great example of a word that has huge number of different meanings to different people. So I'm going to give you what I think is a good working definition of intelligence, which is, it's a process, not a thing, first and foremost. Now, because in language we tend to use words that often make things into a solid thing rather than a process, we lose the reality of what they are. So it's not a thing that you're born with, it's not a thing that you can measure with an IQ test. It's a process that you're doing all the time as you go through your life. And my research has brought this concept forward. It's triphasic. Triphasic simply means there's three phases of intelligence that we're going through all the time. Whether you know it or not, you're going through these three phases. So the idea of these talks is to bring more consciousness into these things, to bring more awareness into these things, because if you're not aware of something, then you have zero control of it. It's only when you get aware of something that you begin to get a possibility that you can change it. So awareness is important. So this is the concept we're going to look at, of intelligence being triphasic. So, what's the first phase? Input. Stuff's coming into us all the time, input. That can be input from the world around us immediately, as we're living life. It can be input from friends, family. It can be input, of course, from the outside in terms of the news. It can be input from television. It can be YouTube. It can be the internet. And of course, at the moment, we have a huge variety of input coming in. A huge variety of different sources giving us different information. The first thing I want to say about the Dragon's Way, it's open. Stage one is being open. For example, let me give you a good illustration of this. A while ago, I became interested in the Flat Earth movement. Now, a lot of people's reaction to this straight away is, oh, no, that's ridiculous. I'm going to look at that. I would suggest that the first approach should be open. Maybe there's something in it. Maybe it's rubbish. But I'm suggesting that there is a kind of intelligence that Bruce Lee used, was first and foremost to make yourself totally open to new ideas. And I mean that. I mean totally open. So when someone presents you with something, or you see something outside of what you consider to be rational, normal, you're open to it first and foremost. Very important is this open stage of how Bruce Lee functioned. He didn't dismiss anything. If someone came along and wanted to show him a new punch, new kick, he was open. Show me. Let's learn. So that's the key here. And I call it, it's called beginner's mind in Zen Buddhism. It's open mind. So you're open to the information. And then the next bit begins, which is assimilation and utilization. So if you're open to the new ideas, then you can start going through a process of being more critical, being more realistic about the ideas. And I found for myself with the flat earth question that by doing an experiment, I could prove that there was curvature of the earth, and that was good as far as I was concerned. There was the proof. I've seen the arguments, I've heard the arguments, and now I've gone out, done an experiment for myself, I've researched my own experience, and there's curvature. So I'm fulfilled inside and satisfied. That's great. So assimilation, utilization is what Bruce then did next. When he took in stuff, and then a lot of it was play. And this is an interesting part about intelligence. Highly intelligent people are often very, very creatively fun in what they do. They're not serious. Albert Einstein was always larking about. There was always a lot of silliness going on. We tend to equate, you know, being very, very serious and grim about things, and this is not the case. Bruce Lee was always mucking about. There was loads of practical jokes, loads of silliness going on. So playing with what you know, having fun, is part of this kind of dragon's intelligence that we're aiming for. And testing things out. Bruce was always testing. So, you know, he would learn something and he would test it out in the real world. Does it work? Because that was his real thinking all the time. Does it work? Is it useful? And in our own personal lives, the same thing should be applying. Is it useful to me? Does this information help me? Does this information make my life better? Okay, so it's testing. And this is a classic Bruce Lee formula here. No way is way. So there is no way, there is no fixed way. You're open to every way as being possible to you, and no limits as limitation. Humans are very good at putting limits on what's possible. Bruce was very much about just getting rid of limits and just seeing what you could do in this kind of state of fun and play. So that's our second. And the third phase is what I call output. So you've opened up, you've let the information in, you've absorbed it, utilised it, worked with it. Then there's output. Bruce was big on this. Bruce was big on not just talking, not just thinking, but doing. Getting stuck into life. He was noted for being constantly on the go. He was a man of action. Yes, he would read, yes, he would study, he was a great reader, his library was 2,500 books, but he really was about application, all the time, applying. His JKD, his martial art, when he went on to filmmaking, he was always applying, bringing things into what he knew. So this is very much about application, creativity. As I've said, you know, if you look at this JKD that he literally created out of nothing, it is a new martial art that's based all around practicality. So Bruce's intelligence had these three different phases that he used, and I'd like you to take this talk, take these words, and see how they work for you, see how they fit for you and your life. And in the next talk, we're going to be looking at another very powerful aspect of Bruce Lee's persona, incredibly powerful, his confidence. Because that's something that Bruce had in buckets. So I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you found this information useful, and I will see you again soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.